Prime Minister Sifi Gharieb has headed to Tipaza province to oversee firefighting operations in several forests in the western part of the province and to take stock of the situation of the affected families. The Algerian airline company Air Algérie has received its first Airbus A330neo aircraft as part of the strengthening of Algeria's presence in regional and international airspace. And the Zionist occupation forces have carried out a new series of raids and arrests of Palestinians in various parts of occupied West Bank, terrorizing the population and destroying their properties. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, in our news, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received a telephone call from his German counterpart, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, who reiterated his deep gratitude for the humanitarian gesture he made in pardoning the writer Boualem Sansal, according to a statement from the Presidency of the Republic. On the same occasion, the two presidents discussed the deep ties of friendship between the two countries, emphasizing that they are very positive today. During their telephone conversation, the two presidents welcomed the principle of mutual respect and characterizes Algerian-German relations, the statement concluded. Prime Minister Sifi Gharieb has headed to the province of Tipaza to oversee firefighting operations in several forests in the western part of the province and to take stock of the situation of the affected people and families. In this context, the Prime Minister assured the families that in accordance with the instructions of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the state is paying special attention to ensuring they receive the best possible support and help them overcome this difficult situation caused by the fires. To this end, he instructed local authorities to guarantee all the necessary conditions for their well-being. Civil protection services, in coordination with the various state services and elements of the Algerian army, have mobilized significant human and material resources, including water bomber aircraft, to control the fires that broke out, as mentioned, in several forests in the western municipalities of Tipaza province. According to a report released by the General Directorate of Civil Protection agents managed to extinguish several fires that broke out in the 10 provinces in the last few hours, while firefighting operations continue for other fires utilizing considerable material and human resources. The Algerian airline company Air Algérie has received its first Airbus A330neo aircraft at Houari Boumediene International Airport in Algiers. The reception ceremony held yesterday was marked by the presence of the Minister of the Interior, local authorities and transport, Saïd Sayoud, who indicated that the acquisition of the aircraft, named November 54, is the beginning of an ambitious program for the acquisition of 8 new aircraft intended to strengthen Algeria's presence in regional and international airspace. Let's listen to Mr. Sayoud.
في إطار تجسيد البرنامج المسطر من طرف شركة الخطوط الجوية الجزائرية.
As part of the implementation of the program outlined by Air Algérie to renew its fleet through the acquisition of 8 Boeing aircrafts and a number of other Airbus aircrafts, I am honored to share with you today the celebration of receiving the first Airbus A330-900 aircraft as an actual launch of the implementation of this program, with the aim of accelerating the increase in capacity and developing the Air Algérie network to include several destinations, including in particular African countries and all Arab capitals.
For his part, the managing director of Air Algérie, Hamza Ben Hamouda, emphasized that this step marks the beginning of a new phase for the development of the fleet in line with the company's ambitious vision.
في لحظة تحمل قيمة رمزية في مسار تحديث عمليات النقل الجوي.
In a moment of symbolic significance in the modernization of air transport operations, we are receiving the first A330neo aircraft as part of a program to acquire 8 airplanes. This step reflects the ambitious vision of the company. Air Algérie's fleet currently comprises 54 passenger and 8 aircraft, in addition to 15 aircraft operated by domestic airlines. This fleet will be further strengthened in the current phase by 16 new aircraft, which will be received gradually as part of the ongoing program.
The new aircraft, with a capacity of 308 passengers, will make its first flight tomorrow, Saturday, to Montreal, Canada. The Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has received at the Ministry headquarters Ms. Hannah Tete, Special Representative of the UN Secretary General and Head of the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, UNSMIL, according to a statement from the Ministry. The consultations between the two parties provided an opportunity to renew developments in the situation or to review developments in the situation in Libya in light of UN efforts to bring this brotherly country to a safe harbor. On this occasion, the UN envoy briefed the Minister of State on the steps taken in the UN roadmap submitted to the Security Council on August 21st, 2025, and the objectives it includes concerning the preparation of a legal framework for the elections, the unification of executive institutions, and the organization of an inclusive national dialogue in preparation for the presidential and parliamentary elections. For his part, Ahmed Attaf reiterated Algeria's support for the UN efforts, stressing the imperative to organize elections as the only way out of the current crisis, while reaffirming Algeria's rejection of any form of interference and foreign interference in Libya's internal affairs. An Algerian delegation representing the hydrocarbons, mining and energy sector has held discussions with the State Secretary of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs, Frank Wetzel, on ways and means to strengthen cooperation in the fields of energy, including hydrogen and clean energy, said a statement from the Ministry of Hydrocarbons and Mines. The Algerian delegation taken part in these meetings, held on the sidelines of the proceedings of the International Presentation meeting on the Algeria-Europe Green Hydrogen Alliance project, as well as South H2 corridor, was made up of the CEO of the Sonatrach Group, Nordin Daoudi, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Hydrocarbons and Mines, Miloud Mjelled, as well as representatives of the Sonatrach and Sonargaz groups. And the Minister of Pharmaceutical Industry, Wassim Quidri, has stressed in Algiers the importance of the African Ministerial Conference on the local production of medicines and health technologies in Africa, which will be hosted by Algeria at the end of November, especially since it will lead to a roadmap to strengthen pharmaceutical production and to implement Algeria's capacities in this area, which includes more than a quarter of the drug factories operating on the continent. During a press conference on this African event scheduled from 27 to 29 November at the Abdel Farhal International Conference Center under the theme A Local Pharmaceutical Industry for a Strong and Integrated Africa, the minister said that the meeting aims to draw up a common roadmap to promote local production of medicines in Africa and to highlight Algeria's capacities in this field and export opportunities to the countries of the continent. The director of the Gaza Media Office, Ismail Al-Thawabita, has said that Algeria has been a true supporter of the Palestinian cause in the battle for awareness against the Zionist disinformation machine, praising the consistent position of the Algerian media, which has made Palestine a national cause. The statement was made during a conference organized by the National Union of Algerian Journalists and Information Professionals on the Zoom platform to discuss the situation of the Palestinian media after the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip, the role of the press in documenting crimes, and the support of international justice. Let's listen to Ismail Al-Thawabita.
Algeria, and especially its esteemed journalists, have been a true pillar of support for the Palestinian cause in the battle for awareness against the Zionist Israeli propaganda, which the Israeli occupation has waged throughout its war of genocide. Therefore, we commend the principled and significant stances and genuine support of our great Algerian people and the Algerian journalists and media professionals who stood firm in this battle of awareness against the Israeli occupation. They stood shoulder to shoulder with us in this struggle to counter the Israeli narrative and expose the violations committed by the Israeli occupation. Just yesterday, the Israeli narrative was the narrative in which the Western world, Europe, and the whole world believed. But thanks be to Allah first, and then to Palestinian, Algerian, and Arab journalists who played a major role in changing the course of those media events unfolding globally. There has been a complete reversal in the acceptance of the Palestinian narrative by 180 degrees.
To this end, Mr. Al-Thawabita stressed that Palestinian journalists have not only been reporters of events, they have become the events themselves, adding that 256 journalists have been killed and 50 others have been imprisoned since the start of the aggression against the Gaza Strip on October 7, 2023. The Zionist occupation forces have carried out a new series of raids and arrests of Palestinians in various parts of the occupied West Bank, terrorizing the population and destroying their property, the Wafa news agency reported. The Silwat, east of Ramallah, 4 young Palestinians were arrested after the Zionist occupation army units stormed the town. During their incursions, the occupation forces searched many houses after forcing their entrances, damaged a vehicle, and destroyed shops during their raid. And the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has demanded an increased contribution to avoid compromising its mission, especially in Gaza. UNRWA counted that the forecast deficit between the last quarter of 2025 and the first quarter of 2026 would amount to about $200 million. In the absence of a significant influx of new funding, the provision of essential services to millions of Palestinian refugees in the region will be compromised, argued UNRWA Chief Philippe Lazzarini. And a new report from UN agencies in charge of child protection unveiled Thursday in Geneva the extent of the psychological consequences on the children in Gaza after 2 years of a ruthless Zionist aggression on the Palestinian enclave. Among the most frequently reported symptoms in children, according to an evaluation conducted in September, include aggressive behaviors, 93%, violence against other children, 90%, sadness and the withdrawal into oneself, 86%, sleep disorders, 79%, and a refusal to go to school with a rate of 69%. After 2 years of Zionist bombings, food insecurity, and massive displacements, the collapse of the educational, social, and health systems in the enclave has eroded the children's sense of stability. And the General Secretariat of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, has condemned the terrorist arson committed Thursday at dawn against a mosque in the governorate of Salfit by Jewish settlers, according to the Wafa news agency. In a statement relayed by Wafa, the OIC stated on Thursday that this criminal act constitutes a blatant provocation against the Muslims of the entire world and an attack on the holy character of places of worship in violation of international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions. The organization has warned against the dangerous escalation and the systematic attacks and crimes committed by extremist settlers benefiting from the protection and support of occupation forces in the occupied West Bank. To the Western Sahara file now. The plundering of the natural resources of Western Sahara constitutes the financial pillar on which rests, since decades, the Moroccan occupier, helped in this dirty work by an international economic network, says the British news site Middle East Eye, which recently published a long survey on this subject. This survey, conducted among Sahrawi and foreign activists, documents the international economic network that finances the Moroccan occupation and the mechanisms by which Morocco plunders the natural resources of the Sahrawi people. Saad Bouazi has more details in this report.
The survey, entitled 50 Years of Plundering, How Morocco and its Allies Take Advantage of Western Sahara, details how foreign companies continue to exploit the resources of the last colony in Africa, while Morocco tries to restore its image and widen the occupation thanks to renewable energy projects installed on the occupied territory. Relying on the testimonies of activists, the site argues that the region of El Gergerat, south of occupied Western Sahara, constitutes a true looting corridor because it houses the only road by which Morocco exports goods from the occupied territories. The constant flow of these goods, phosphates, fish and agricultural products feeds the economic system that supports occupation, it emphasizes. The British media cites in this respect the special advisor to the Sahrawi president for natural resources and legal affairs, Abi Bushraya el-Bashir, for whom the looting constitutes a form of economic colonialism. He said that foreign companies trading with Morocco in Western Sahara participate in the financing and strengthening of the occupation, violating international law and encouraging the culture of impunity. He thus stated to Middle East Eye that Morocco's dual objective is to plunder the Sahrawi wealth and deprive the Sahrawi people of the possibility to build an economically viable state, accusing the international community to yield to Moroccan blackmail.
And finally, in the Sudanese file, the United Nations deplores the lack of funding for the humanitarian response for Sudan, limited to 8% of needs, while more than 90,000 people fled the massacres in the town of Al Fasher over the past 2 weeks. Saad Bouazi reports again.
Despite the growing media coverage of the crisis, the financing of the response is only 8%, which is well below the critical needs, said the Director General of the International Organization for Migration, IOM, Amy Pope, who describes a catastrophic situation in a country ravaged by more than 2 years of conflict. The situation in Sudan is in fact a great crisis of displacement in the world, with a total of 10 million displaced people inside and outside the country since the beginning of the civil war in April 2023, and humanitarian aid remains largely underfunded. This underfunding has repercussions on the material, medical, food and psychosocial assistance that the humanitarian teams offer on the spot. In Port Sudan, we have less than 5,000 aid kits for the population. The last 35 tents we had in stock have been distributed. We are currently expecting about 2,000 tents that are still stuck at customs, but as you can imagine, given the scale of the population displacements that I have described, 2,000 tents will not be enough, the Director General lamented. Tom Fletcher, the UN humanitarian chief, was also on a visit to Sudan, for which he recently allocated $20 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund to scale up life-saving assistance in Tawila and Kordofan.
That's the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for weekly programs. Today, November 14 coincides with the World Diabetes Day, and here is a program on diabetes in kids. Will be followed by another program by my colleague Jamal Simani. As for me, I'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this new edition of the Health Magazine. Diabetes is one of the most threatening diseases of our time. In addition to adults, this disorder can also affect children at an early age. Type 1 diabetes in children is a condition in which your child's body no longer produces an important hormone which is called insulin. Your child needs insulin to survive, so you'll have to replace the missing insulin. Type 1 diabetes in children used to be known as juvenile diabetes or insulino-dependent diabetes. The diagnosis of type 1 diabetes in children can be overwhelming at first. Suddenly, you and your child, depending on his or her age, must learn how to give injections, count carbohydrates, and monitor blood sugar. Type 1 diabetes in children requires consistent care, but advances in blood sugar monitoring and insulin delivery have improved the daily management of the condition. The signs and symptoms of type 1 diabetes in children usually develop quickly over a period of weeks. These signs and symptoms include increased thirst and frequent urination. Excess sugar building up in your child's bloodstream pulls fluid from tissues. As a result, your child might be thirsty and drink and urinate more than usual. A young toilet-trained child might suddenly experience bedwetting. Extreme hunger. Without enough insulin to move sugar into your child's cells, your child's muscles and organs lack energy. This triggers intense hunger. Weight loss. Despite eating more than usual to relieve hunger, your child may lose weight, sometimes rapidly. Without the energy sugar supplies, muscle tissues and fat stores simply shrink. Unexplained weight loss is often the first sign of type 1 diabetes to be noticed in children. Fatigue. Lack of sugar in your child's cells might make him or her tired and lethargic. Irritability or behavior change. In addition to mood problems, your child might suddenly have a decline in performance at school. Fruity smelling breath. Burning fat instead of sugar produces certain substances, ketones, that can cause a fruity breath odor. Blurred vision. If your child's blood sugar is too high, fluid may be pulled from the lenses of your child's eyes. Your child might be unable to focus clearly. So go and see your child's doctor if you notice any of the signs or symptoms of type 1 diabetes. The exact cause of type 1 diabetes is unknown, but in most people with type 1 diabetes, the body's immune system, which normally fights harmful bacteria and viruses, mistakenly destroys insulin-producing islet cells in the pancreas. Genetics and environmental factors appear to play a role in this process as well. Insulin performs the critical job of moving sugar, glucose, from the bloodstream to the body's cells. Sugar enters the bloodstream when food is digested. Once the islet cells of the pancreas are destroyed, your child produces little or no insulin at all. As a result, glucose builds up in your child's bloodstream where it can cause life-threatening complications. Risk factors for type 1 diabetes in children include family history. Anyone with a parent or siblings with type 1 diabetes has a slightly increased risk of developing the condition. Genetic susceptibility. The presence of certain genes indicates an increased risk of developing type 1 diabetes. Environmental risk factors might include certain viruses. Exposure to various viruses may trigger the autoimmune destruction of the islet cells. Diet. No specific dietary factor or nutrient in infancy has been shown to play a role in the development of type 1 diabetes. However, early intake of cow's milk has been linked to an increased risk of type 1 diabetes, while breastfeeding might lower the risk. Complications of type 1 diabetes develop gradually if blood sugar levels aren't well controlled over a prolonged period of time. Diabetes complications can eventually be disabling or even life-threatening. Those complications include heart and blood vessel disease. Diabetes dramatically increases your child's risk of developing conditions such as coronary artery disease with chest pain, heart attack, stroke, narrowing of the arteries, and so on and so forth. Nerve damaging. Excess sugar can injure the walls of the tiny blood vessels that nourish your child's nerves, especially in the legs. Kidney damage. Diabetes can damage the numerous tiny blood vessels clusters that filter waste from your child's blood. Eye damage. Diabetes can damage the blood vessels of the retina, which may lead to poor vision and even possibly causing blindness. Skin conditions. Diabetes may leave your child more prone to skin problems, including bacterial infections, fungal infections, and itching. And osteoporosis. Diabetes may lead to lower than normal bone mineral density, increasing your child's risk of osteoporosis as an adult. There is currently no known way to prevent type 1 diabetes. Children who have a high risk of developing type 1 diabetes can be tested for antibodies associated with the disorder, but the presence of these antibodies does not make diabetes inevitable, and there is currently no known way to prevent type 1 diabetes if the antibodies are found. Researchers are working on preserving type 1 diabetes in people who have a high risk of developing the disease. Other research focuses on preventing further destruction of the islet cells in people who are newly diagnosed. While there is nothing you could have done to prevent your child's type 1 diabetes, you can help your child prevent its complications by helping your child maintain good blood sugar control as much as possible, teaching your child the importance of eating a healthy diet, and participating in regular physical activity, scheduling regular visits with your child's diabetes doctor, and a yearly eye exam beginning no more than 5 years after the initial diabetes diagnosis. There are several blood tests for type 1 diabetes in children. Random blood sugar test. This is the primary screening test for type 1 diabetes. A blood sample is taken at a random time, regardless of when your child last ate. Glycated hemoglobin test. This test indicates your child's average blood sugar level for the past 2 to 3 months. Fasting blood sugar test. A blood sample is taken after your child fasts overnight. Your doctor will likely recommend additional tests to confirm the type of diabetes that your child has. It's important to distinguish between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes because treatment strategies differ. These additional tests include blood tests to check for antibodies that are common in type 1 diabetes, urine tests to check for the presence of ketones, which also suggests type 1 diabetes rather than type 2. Your child will need regular follow-up appointments to ensure good diabetes management and to check his or her A1C levels. Your doctor will also periodically use blood and urine tests to check your child's cholesterol levels, thyroid function, and kidney function. In addition, your doctor will regularly assess your child's blood pressure and growth, check the sites where your child tests blood sugar and delivers insulin. Anyone who has type 1 diabetes needs insulin treatment to survive. Many types of insulin are available, including rapid-acting insulin, insulin therapies such as Lispro, Aspar, and Glulicin. start working within 15 minutes, peak in about 1 hour and last 4 hours. Short-acting insulin therapies such as human insulin should be injected 20 to 30 minutes before a meal, peak in 1.5 to 2 hours and last 4 to 6 hours. Intermediate-acting insulin therapies such as NPH insulin start working within about 1 hour, peak in about 6 hours and last 12 to 24 hours. Long-acting insulin therapies such as insulin glargine and insulin detamir have almost no peak and may provide coverage for as long as 20 to 26 hours. Depending on your child's age and needs, your doctor may prescribe a mixture of insulin types to use throughout the day and night. As a conclusion, remember that a healthy diet and physical activity can help your children cope with diabetes type 1 and lead a normal life. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the Health Magazine. Do join us next week for a new edition of our program with another health issue to shed light on. Goodbye for now.
مع إذاعة الجزائر الدولية لن تفوتكم لحظة واحدة من الأخبار السياسية والاقتصادية الهامة. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم. استمعوا إلينا لنقل المعلومات من مصادرها الرسمية وتفسير حي للأحداث في حصص تحليلية مميزة. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم.
يوميا لحظة بلحظة، أخبار الساسة والسياسة، المال والأعمال، الثقافة والرياضة. الجزائر الدولية، نافذة مفتوحة على